guys. This is Pastor Anthony over at the Center Church. We are here at the Center podcast, and today I have Frank and Victor again with me. They will be regulars on the podcast. I love their wisdom. Just for a moment, I wanted to share a few things. Our highlight. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we have our city life where the youth from the neighborhood come and they're loved on. It's a great space. Mackenzie and a part of a lot of their other individuals. There's a team of adults that are just loving on the teenagers in the neighborhood. It's from 6 to 8, so just come on out to the Center Church, 2019 Fraser Street in South Modesto. And then also, this is the weekend of our annual South Modesto Christmas, and so Friday, actually, if you live in the neighborhood anywhere by Bret Harte and Hanshaw over in South Modesto, we'll have a small parade. You'll see us out there. Santa will be somewhere out there.
It's gonna be a little bit bigger than small, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we'll be traveling through the neighborhood approximately around 4 o'clock, and the ending time we don't know. We'll just go through the neighborhood and just spreading some joy. And then Saturday, this Saturday, from 4 to 6, some of the vendors will be here a little bit later, I think, if it gets too cold for them. But from 4 to 6, we will have our South Modesto Christmas, and we'll be giving out gifts to the first 400 kids that come out, and then there'll be also resources and vendors and just individuals that we partner with, and so looking forward to that. Again, we gather here every Sunday at 11:15, 2019 Fraser Street in Modesto, or you could watch us live at Center Modesto. So today, we are, for just a moment, I'm going to I shouldn't say that because they don't need my permission, but Victor and Frank to speak to us about the neighborhood. They both grew up here in South Modesto, and so just kind of leaning into some of their experiences and what they discovered, I suppose, as they got older and they reflect back now. As some of the advice that they had received and perhaps maybe even ignored at that time, but then later found value to it, and so let's do that. Let's dig in. I had this question, if you would, and that is there's a need for guidance, and we'll talk about that. Whether it's a mentor or a father figure, just someone that's breathing life into us, but then yet. There's a real pull from the neighborhood too, as well, especially with young folks, young adults, and so we'll look at that. And so that's just to prime the pump. I'd like to read some Bible verses first, and then you guys could kind of reflect on just what's being said, but then just kind of chime in. Okay. So Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9 says this: "Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning."
Amen.
And then Proverbs 13:20 says it this way: "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." And then in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 7 says, "Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of God. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith." And also I wanted to kind of say too that Psalm 68, if we ever get an opportunity to read through it, it talks about the God of the fatherless, and that God is he's just so merciful, and what a father model, I suppose, or someone that really exemplifies what a father looks like and how he cares. And then one last verse, Proverbs 13, verse 14 says, "A wise person's instruction is a fountain of life, turning people away from the snares of death." And so let's get into it. I wrote this little note. There's some good in the hood, right?
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of good.
Yeah.
A lot
so-
of good.
Yeah, and so let's dig in. Your upbringing in South Modesto, and then some of your experiences, and then perhaps talk about again what you discovered over time, the real need for some advice or some mentors, father figures in your life. So whoever wants to chime in, go for it.
You want me to start, Frankie, or you can? Oh.
Yeah.
He's got some lint or something.
Well, we grew up in South Modesto, and we had, like Anthony was saying, some people are fatherless, and we were fortunate to have both my parents, my mother and my father. Both of them worked. It was a good childhood, you know, and I always looked up to my dad. He was a good man. But as I got older, you see a lot of mothers that they were married, but then they got divorced or whatever. And then they're single parents, and then a lot of people, you know, they're looking for a father figure, and sometimes nobody's there. So like, I don't know. I think a lot of people need somebody in their life, you know, father figure, mother figure. A lot of times the mother will take up the slack, you know, and then, but yeah, I think, like I said, both of my parents were there, and we were blessed. We were real blessed to have both my parents there, and I always looked up to my dad. My dad was a hard-working man.
What were some of the things that your grandpa used to work doing on his off time?
He would go to the flea markets. He'd sell on the side of the road. We'd go to fields and pick watermelon when the watermelons were already picked, and we'd go over there and you know, like he would tell us, oh yeah, the farmer said we can get the leftovers. And so he had this Ford, international truck, a green one, and we'd be in the fields and we'd load it up with that watermelon or whatever was in there, and a lot of times, you know, nobody said nothing to us. But a couple of times the farmer, hey, what are you guys doing? The farmer said I could do this. He goes, I'm the farmer. But then my dad would talk to him and tell him about, I got my kids and, and a little extra money. And then after my dad got done talking to him, they were like friends. And go ahead and pick whatever you want. They were, just get over it, and, so my dad was a real good guy. Funny, real funny and stuff. He was just, I think that's what all our sense of humor. I got a sense of humor sometimes. Frank got a sense of humor. Everybody in my family's, I think, because of my dad, has a sense of humor, and I don't know. I appreciate that kind of. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I think Grandpa had a great sense of humor. You know, he was always a hardworking man. He always on a money making mission. You know,
Always.
but back to talking about growing up here in South Modesto. You know what I mean? Like back in your times,
Yeah.
when you were growing up.
Yeah, it was simpler.
And then at the same time, at that time, when this guy was growing up, I heard stories of back then, the racism.
Yeah,
the racism
I didn't want to talk about it, but I guess I could.
They were like I remember hearing stories of them being like one of the first Mexican families right here in the neighborhood, and at that time, the Mexican families would go from, because the work, the seasons would change, so the work would change, so they would go back and forth from here to Imperial Valley, back down south, like almost towards Mexico to work,
Yeah.
And how was that back then?
You know what? My dad did what he had to do, back in the day, but like I said, we had both our parents, and he would come over here, work in the cannery, and you know, we would, you know, he'd work, and my mom would work here too. And then when the season was over, he'd go down south, and he worked at the Holly Sugar. It's they made it was work with sugar beets, and he had his job over there too, and we would go back and forth every year, like, you know, migrant farm workers. You know how they just migrate from over here to over here, and he did the same thing, but he was in the cannery, and then he was over there working at Holly Sugar. And the schools finally said either you stay over there or you stay over here, and my mom chose over here, and that's why we're over here and stuff. But it was a good childhood. I often think, how would it be if we would have stayed over there, you know, who I met, who would have married, who would have, you know, I don't know.
You had said more of a simpler time. You had mentioned it. Can you just kind of flesh that out?
You know, like Frank says, when we first got here, we were one of the first Hispanic families here, Mexican families, and we dealt with a lot of racism and a lot of stuff getting thrown at our house or whatever. But after a while, we became friends with a lot of people, and to this day, we're still friends. Over 50 years that I had these friends with me, and they're one of my best friends. And it was a simpler time, you know. You go to school. I played sports. You know, yeah, we weren't rich, but you know, my dad always had food at the house. You know, I guess back then, you know, you had a sack of beans and, you know, flour, and you know, my dad would always have a box of fruit for us, you know, and we'd eat that fruit, and you know, it was a simple time. He'd go to the dairies. You can't do that no more, but he would get like 5 gallons of milk, and in the morning, you know, fresh milk. It wasn't even pasteurized or nothing. And then straight from the udder. Matter of fact, I got milky eyes. No, I'm just no, but it was, I don't know. We'd have milk. We had we had a good childhood. It was real good, real simple, real. I don't know. We just not like it is today. I mean, I think today is difficult, but I think if you trust in God and you follow God, I think, you know, you'll be okay.
So why don't you speak into that, Frank, about, you know, your upbringing? Obviously, it would have been different than his. So
Yeah.
Your upbringing in South Modesto.
Oh, you know, well, first I want to start with, you can have both parents in the house, but if a father is not being the head of the house and being what a father is supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know, it's like not having a dad there at all, you know. And I mean, I didn't have a dad in my life till like I was like probably like 6, 7 years old, you know. And then it was real brief, you know. It was a stepdad, and well, my real father, first of all, my real dad, I never, you know, I barely met him like when I was 42 years old, and so you know, my dad left when I was born, so my mom was raising me, you know, was a single mother, you know, doing what she could, and so then like at the age of 6, 7 years old, she had gotten married, real brief marriage, you know, separated again. But then, well, my little sisters is, you know, my stepdad, you know, he was a provider, you know, but he didn't have the father figure qualities. I don't know if his daddy didn't love him the way he should have loved him, or I don't know, but you know, I could say that there wasn't nothing that my sisters needed other than a dad being there. You know, like he was a provider. You know, there was a roof over, you know, our heads. You know, they had everything they needed, but dad. You know, and so that right there is key, because you know you got As growing up, you teach your kids things, you teach your boys things, your boys watch you,
Yeah.
your boys watch you all the time, as they're growing up, and you see dad, trimming his beard or, shaving, and, so your son sees that, and he's like, oh, your boys mimic you,
Yeah.
and so it's important for us to be there, and this is why we do this, just like it's important for, for mothers to be, there's, to do what mothers do, like for their daughters, there's things that a dad can't do for daughters, just like there's things that a mom can't do that a dad does for his kids, but it's important for both of us, for both parties to be there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, it is so important, and that's what a lot of people don't see these days, like, us as men, yes, we're the head of the house, and not just as providers, about going out and making that money, but as mentally and physically and emotionally for our families and for our wives and for our kids. And sometimes, it might get blown out of context, some people, head of the house, and they want to overrule everything, that you do what I said you got to do, and this is the way it's got to be done, I don't mean it like that. I mean, we're the head of the house, we conduct things in a more professional manner. You talk to your wife. You counsel your wife. You know what I mean? And when she talks back to you, you receive what she's talking to you about, and you compromise, and that's how you work things out, and that's how things get done.
You're a team.
Exactly, you're a team.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to figure that out because of the absence of not having my father there, or my stepdad stepping up to the plate like he should have,
So with the absence of your father early on, or even as you headed into, I suppose, somewhat of your teenage years, what did that look like? What are, as a result of that, what are some of the choices and the experiences that you had made during that time?
Well, this is what I was about to get into, is that you teach your kids how to work. You know what I mean? So we see that. We see our parents, we see our father going out working, by the sweat of his brow, not making that easy money that you get from side hustling or dealing, wheeling and dealing, you know what I mean? You see the hard-earned money.
Yeah.
You learn that. We pick that up. It's a trade, you pick that up, and just how you see when we see our dads, talking sweet to our mothers, we pick that up, we that it produce good fruit, you know what I mean? And if it wasn't for this guy sitting next to me, my uncle showing me what it takes to be a good man, and yeah, I would be in trouble. I'd probably still be in trouble, I went through all kinds of trials and tribulations growing up, and gang banging, getting into drugs, instead of my dad's, having a dad there to be able to snatch me up and be like, hey, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, I didn't show you that. I showed you how to be a man. I showed you how to work. I showed you how to, what you're supposed to do, what I expect from you to do, and I got led into other things, hanging around the wrong crowd, looking, what's that country song, looking for love in all the wrong places,
Hey, Frankie, that's the singing portion of our song.
Oh.
Looking for.
But I mean, honestly, with an absent father, us as growing up, we tend to look for that father figure and other things, as we see older homeboys, or or like older guys in the neighborhood that are driving around in them fancy cars. They got them nice Jordans on and them nice sports jackets on, the starter jackets, and like, hey, I never got to have that, how'd you get that? And you see how these things are acquired, how they get them, you out there hustling, you out there doing things you shouldn't be doing, and so, but it's that easy money, so it's easy to try to pick up that trade, right? Because that's what we see, You know, that's what I saw. You know, I was, you know, growing up and I'd see these guys, you know, nice fancy shoes and, you know, I had some beat up Reeboks with holes in them because that's what, that was what I had, you know. And I wanted things. So, you know, I began to watch and see how these guys were doing it, and you follow suit. You know what I mean? You follow suit because you just want to blend in. You know, you just want to be accepted. You know, and so you know, you start hanging around the crowd. You start hanging around the wrong crowd. You know, doing the things that you shouldn't be doing, and that's what I did. You know, I was hanging around guys. You know, I'm not saying I shouldn't have been around these guys, but you know, I'm hanging around guys that were older than me, you know, a lot faster than me, you know, and I had to catch up. You know, you have to catch up. If you don't catch up, you get left behind.
Yeah.
You know, and you get trampled on. You know, so, you know, I'm sitting here trying to catch up and have things and do things and in all the wrong ways. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have dad sit there to snatch me up and be like, hey. Eso no se hace. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. This isn't what I taught you to do.
Yeah.
This isn't what I taught you. Did I do this? Is this what I showed you?
Yeah.
You know, and when you got somebody, especially somebody that's raising you, when you got them to say, hey, is this what I showed you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a reality check because like, well, no. You know, then where'd you learn this?
Yeah.
You know? You got that accountability, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got caught up in the mix real quick. You know what I mean? I was hanging around guys and it was it was a group of buddies, man. It was just a group of us that grew up right here in the neighborhood all on the same block. And
Yeah.
and we weren't even a gang, you know, we were just buddies.
Yeah.
You know, that's we all went to school together, you know, preschool, kindergarten.
Yeah. You know, I think I've told you that you work for what you got and that's yours.
Amen.
And but if you get it the wrong way, they can take it from you. Everything that you built, you know, there's guys that nice house, nice cars, you know, a lot of stuff, starter jackets, Jordans, or whatever is out there right now. Yeah, and but if you did it illegally, and if you did it, you know, the wrong way, you know, somebody could come in there, they raid your house, and then they'll take everything. But I always say, you know, if you work for that, you know, that's yours.
Yeah.
They can't take it away from you. That you sweated your brow on, you know, you worked, you know, you suffered, but what you got is yours. You know, a lot of people have a lot of stuff that they made easy. You know, oh look, I made, you know, say you made 30,000 in a year or whatever. I'm just putting that out there, and then this guy makes 5, 6, I don't know how much times more money than you do, but once he gets caught up, you know, all that stuff that he has is gone, you know, just.
Yeah.
And I personally feel that I work for that, you know, I did it right, you know, I didn't, you know, go out there and I didn't hurt nobody, you know, and like you said, Frank, people are watching what you do. You know, your kids are watching you.
Yeah.
You know, your daughter's watching you. You know, everybody's watching you. Everybody in the neighborhood. You know what? Frank did it right. You know, he's working, and you know, he's a God-fearing man, and you know, he's doing it right. You know, you know, all the stuff that you got now, you know, is yours. You know, it's they can't take that away from you.
Amen.
You know, and you can. Like backslide, oh, you know what, I'm gonna sell this or that, and you know, something legal, and you know, karma will come back at you, and
yeah, well,
you know, and so, but if you know you do everything right, and you know, I think that's the way to do it. You know, I mean, money's not everything, but if you have your family, I think you're the richest man in the world. You know, you can have, you know, billions of dollars or whatever, but if you don't got your family with you, if you don't got your son, your daughter, your wife right next to you, you know, it's just what money's, I don't know, money's not gonna love you back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, so when we think of, here, here we are at the Center Church, right in the middle of, in the heart of South Modesto in the neighborhood. And, as we look around, we could see their kids, teenagers, young adults, and wanting to be somewhat of an example, or we could say, somewhat of like, Paul would say, for individuals to imitate us,
Yeah.
as we imitate Christ or express, the kind of love that God does. I suppose what kind of wisdom, or maybe better yet, when do you think that the light turned on, or like when you said, oh, wait a minute, and you began to kind of put two and two together with the advice that individuals were giving you.
You know, it took a lot. It took a lot to get there. I mean, after, county jail, prison, I got shot. I got shot, twice. Um, and I didn't almost lose my life or nothing, but I got shot. I was in front of my grandma's house in my car, and some guys just drove up and right up behind my car and just lit me up. And
Yeah, I remember.
that right there was like that made me see things different. That made me see things different. Like, hey,
So
what?
wake-up call.
Like, hey, they can't take my life. You know what I mean? And I started. So then, when I was in the hospital, and I was on the run. I was on parole, and I already knew that I was gonna end up going back to prison. And then, so I was just like, man, you know what? Things gotta change. You're like, I'm gonna end up losing my life over something dumb.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about like everything that my uncle would always tell me growing up, because that's why I wanted him to talk first, because like when they grew up, like everything was cool. It was
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah.
When I hear stories and I hear everything, and like things weren't like, the whole red and blue and
Yeah.
this and that. Things. It was just about surviving.
Yeah.
It
It was just fist fights back then, and
yeah.
it was you party and then you'd shake hands afterwards. But
I
it was
remember
a
hearing.
different time to
I remember hearing stories of, 4th Street Park, it used to be popping. I remember I seen pictures, of all the lowriders parked all the way around 4th Street Park, and it just, things were different back then,
Yeah.
And
you could go party.
you go anywhere, right?
Yeah,
You could go.
you could have. We would party at my house, my mom's house, my mom's house, and then we'd go to the west side, and we'd go to the east side, and it was a simpler time, And then you hear about shootings in down south or whatever, but you never heard about them over here. And I don't know, you just had a good time, there was fights or whatever, but that's all there were, But it was, like you said, it was a simpler time, and then everybody got aggressive and colors, and it was just, yeah, it was a simpler time.
When I was I was sitting in the hospital, and after being shot, and it hit me like, like the words of wisdom my uncle told me, like, don't ever segregate yourself to one group. Don't ever segregate yourself to the red or to the blue, or just be you.
Yeah, exactly.
Be you. That way you could go anywhere, you could do anything. We used to go and we would ball. We'd go and play basketball. East side, west side.
Yeah,
We'd go to this gym, that gym, and play 5 or 6 games of basketball.
It was fun.
And play with all different ethnic groups. You know what I mean? And then I had to worry about nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember like he's saying that don't get involved. Don't get involved in nothing like that. So that way you don't have to worry about nothing.
You don't.
And you go anywhere you want and be anything.
You can. If you believe, if you believe in God, not now, back then I wish I would have been more religious, but I think we, like when we used to go play basketball all the time, and we were accepted everywhere. We good time. And like I said, you know, we played with everybody. You know, we played with everybody, and we had a good time. It was, like you said, it was a simpler time. You didn't get involved, you know, say, nowadays, I don't even know how it is nowadays. I don't even think they even play ball or anything like that. And that's kind of sad that there's a lot of young kids that they're just on their devices or whatever, and they're not outside playing. You know, we were outside playing. We were little kids. We played hide and seek and tag, and then later on I got into sports and playing basketball and football and track, and it was just I don't know. It was a simpler time. It was just, you know, I don't know. What do you think, Mel?
You know, which goes back to, you know, I mean, the fathers needing to be in the homes, you know, and stepping up, you know, it reminds me, like, one time I was in the store with Noel, with my little boy, and he was like, I think he was like 4 years old, and I'm over here doing some shopping and stuff, and my son, he's walking around, you know, behind me, you know, around the corner in the aisle or whatever, and looking at toys and stuff, and like, but I'm listening to my son, you know, you know, and as I'm looking through stuff, and I hear him, like, he meets another little boy in the store, like, you know, another little kid,
Yeah.
and they're talking and looking at the stuff on the shelves, and Noel goes, the little boy goes, oh, is that your daddy? And Noel's like, yeah, that's my daddy. He's like, where's your daddy at? And the little boy goes, oh, I don't have a dad. I don't have a daddy. And he's like, you don't have a daddy? Like, why don't you have a daddy? You know, and like, and it broke my heart. And it broke my heart. And I remember this, so, like, I think about it all the time, because my kids are they're blessed. I'm blessed to be able to be in my kids' life. But
Yeah.
it broke my heart, because as me and my son walked away, my little boy comes to me and he goes, Dad. He goes, Dad. He goes, oh, excuse me. My little boy goes, Dad. He goes, why doesn't that little boy have a daddy, Dad? And I was like, I don't know, Poppy. I go, I don't know, Pop. I don't know, Poppy, but I just want you to know I love you, son, and that I'm always going to be here for you.
Yeah. You know, Mel, I'll always be here for you too, Mel. You know that.
I know, too.
But I think that's what family's for, you know. And like you said, some people don't have fathers, but I think if they have mentors or, you know, uncles or, you know, to guide them and help them through their, you know, formidable years. But that's the reality. There's a lot of kids that don't have, some of them don't have both parents, you know.
Yeah.
They're in the foster system, you know, and you know, a lot of us, well, myself, we were fortunate, like I said, and I feel blessed that I had both my mother and father and my siblings, Raymond, your mom, Archie, Sarah, Julia, Felix, and we had it was just such an amazing time, and you know, that little story that you just told me broke my heart. You know, I feel real sad for that little boy.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully he found somebody or a father figure.
And perhaps that's, you know, like, that's what we've been talking about, that it allows us to see, you know, how it impacts, you know, not only, so I guess, the individual that's without the father, but even impacts individuals that are observing the absentee of a father, being
Yeah.
able to, you know, share with you, or your son asking you that question. It's a real reality, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, and my kids are soft. like toilet tissue. You know, I mean, it's so like I can't even fathom the fact or even think of it of dad not being there. You know, when me and my wife went through our split up and the enemy tried to throw that D word in the mix, like I couldn't I couldn't allow that to happen. You know what I mean? Like, no, devil, you're not gonna try to destroy my family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my kids are not built for. You know, I'm not saying the kids are. You know, any kids are built for. You know,
Yeah.
you know to go through the family split up or divorce. You know, but it's you know I wasn't gonna allow that to happen to my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my kids they've always had mom and dad there, and they're always gonna have mom and dad there. You know, and you know, like people think that it doesn't affect their kids, but it does. You know, just with little time that we went through, the struggle me and my wife went through, our separation. I seen it begin to take its toll on on my kids. Even though I was I still did my same routine. Dad never stopped being dad. I got home from even though I wasn't staying at the home no more. I got out of work and I would go to the house and when I would get to home when I would get to the house from work, she would luckily the schedule worked out. You know what I mean? Praise God. When I got out of work, she was on her way. She was leaving to work, so it was hit and miss. So there was always a parent there.
Yeah.
So she would be leaving to work as I would be getting home. Getting to the house. And I would be there, and I would still do the same thing I would do if we weren't beefing or we weren't splitting up.
Yeah.
Still cook dinner, still spend time with the kids, still make sure the homework's getting done, still, get in the shower, get ready, get your clothes ready for school, and spend time with my kids. But they knew something was going on, they knew, as much as we tried to, not let it be known to them, they still knew, and my son know well, and he's my little pastor, like I always say, he's got a soft heart like his daddy does. He's seen, and I seen it take its toll on him,
Yeah.
like in school, it started,
Yeah.
he started having, little problems in school, or like when I'd go to the school and the teacher would be like, hey, is everything okay, at home? I'm like, what are you talking about? What's going on? And, well, Noel's kind of just, things are, he's just being kind of different, and, I heard him say something, to one of the kids the other day, and, she's I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, there's a little bump in the road right now at home, but I'll make sure to talk with my son, and check on, see what's going on,
Yeah.
and so that's when the Lord told me you need to do something now. You need to pray. You need to do more than just being dad. You need dad.
Yeah.
To come in and switch this around.
Yeah.
You need dad to come in here and move mountains,
Yeah.
and that's what I prayed for,
Yeah.
I allowed the situation to take its course, and I asked the Lord to intercede. I told God, I prayed one night and I told God, I was like, Lord,
Yeah.
you showed me how to fall. You showed me how to fall and hit rock bottom. Now show me how to get back up and move mountains.
Amen.
I was so proud of you, how you fought for your family. You fought for your family. You were staying with us, and I saw it every day. Like me and him always say, man, Frankie really wants his family, and you fought for it, and you got your family back. And that's like you said, I think that's what a true father does, and you're a true father, You're a true dad. And, what you did, I was so impressed. Like you said, every day you'd go to work, come back, and, you shower up, and then you'd go take care of your kids, and, then you'd come back and sleep over at our house. But you did that for, I don't know, how long was it? But, so impressed with you, man. Such a good man that you've become.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say how proud I am of you, man, and how much I love you, and you're just a good guy, man. You're a real good guy.
I had a good father figure, you know what I mean? He stepped up in places you didn't have to, you know? You showed me how to shave. You know, you showed me how to, you know,
Drive.
to
Remember?
drive.
Remember that mule?
Yeah. Man, you know, you showed me how to be a man. Yeah.
And you are a man, mule. You're a good man of God, you know. And I'm like I said, I'm so proud of you, mule. I really am.
Well, I would say that I'm blessed, just being able to hear the both of you and the experience or the things that you've learned from your father figure, and very grateful for you guys being able to share that with those that are listening, and just kind of reminds us again, just this great need in the neighborhood for more individuals that are just willing, right? Perhaps just to be present,
Yeah.
to give advice when needed, to care about some of these young folks that are in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your childhood like?
I was a little different. I think when I thought about what you had said about your dad. I think it was somewhat similar with me. My dad was there, but then he wasn't. So he was there. He worked. He was a great provider for us. I don't recall that we went hungry or without clothes. We didn't have much, but we had what was needed. But as far as advice and those kinds of things, I don't recall any of that. It wasn't. When I think about it now, it wasn't even until my later years, probably within the last 5 years, 5 or 6 years, that I've had some great men begin to just speak into my life and really help me. So even like with loving with my wife, I only learned how to love her by watching others after I came to know the Lord. How one should be treated and so forth, because I didn't really have a good example of that. But yeah, so yeah, my dad's still alive, and I love him, and I think that was just probably the logistics of it. Again, not real advice, but certainly one who provided for our home.
Yeah.
No, like how's your relationship with your father now?
What's that?
How's your relationship with your father now?
I still talk with him. He doesn't even live that far from us, and so we go every so often, go and visit, and it's good. It's nothing. I don't know. I think as a result of a lack of communication during our childhood, you still kind of it's carried over to even now in our adulthood. So when we do go over there, though, we laugh. We have we talk about sports, those kinds of things. I'd say that I guess it's as good as it.
You don't ever have like a deep conversation with them, and it's just.
No, I don't think the environment doesn't allow it to.
Would you want to, like, later on, just kind of, Dad, but I mean.
Yeah, no, so we've had conversations regarding our upbringing, and so I express to my dad all the time that that when I'm there, that I love him, and just reassure him that he didn't, it has nothing to, you didn't do anything wrong, as far as because I think he at times I'm sensing that he lives with a sense of guilt or shame, that he probably would have wanted to be there more for us, and as a result of that, as a family, we don't get together as often, so he sees that now. I think that's the part where he struggles with. How come none of my kids come over to see me? Well, it was part of that environment.
It's just like if you plant the seed, you're gonna bear fruit. And if if there's like your dad there's a little fruit there,
Yeah.
and you can still water it, Anthony. You can still, maybe have slowly but surely some conversations with them, and then maybe get a better relationship with
Yeah,
them.
and so then it's interesting because then in our own family, it's like the opposite. So we're all knitted together.
That's
We have,
great.
yeah,
That's
we have
great.
real, sometimes difficult conversations, but there's a lot of understanding and a lot of love and a lot of direction, as far as in our own home.
That's
My
good.
wife and I, we make a great team.
Amen.
We have
Yeah.
our kids know, they know that we love them, they know that, there are times where we have really deep conversations
Yeah.
and things that we may be concerned about. And the freedom to be able to express that, so
And that's key right there.
Yeah.
Conversation, talking it out. Sometimes some people will keep it locked up. They
Mhm.
won't say nothing for a long time. But I think talking about it, getting it out in the open, and this is what's going on. I'm having problems here or there, financial or emotional or whatever. And I think that's for a healthy relationship.
Yeah. So I thank the Lord for that, and thank for the people that have invested in me and
Yeah.
helped me to learn some of the having a teachable spirit, right?
Yeah,
Learning, being willing to listen, willing to learn. I would like to say with someone, I don't know how to do that, so you don't know how to do it yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we could learn.
Yeah.
Whatever it is
Yeah.
that we need to learn or grab hold of,
Yeah.
okay, you just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Let's have conversation, and let's walk for a little while.
Yeah.
We can kind of discover this together.
That's just a good example right there, of generational curses being broken. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that, like I said, there could be a man in the house, but is he being the man that he needs to be? Is he being the father figure that he needs to be? You know what I mean? Because our kids need direction, boys or girls, like I said before, a father can only do the things that a father can do, and a mother can do things only a mother can do. But I mean, when you got both of them under the same roof, doing their part, you're gonna have great kids. You know what I mean? I mean, there's single mothers and single fathers out there raising their kids, and they got great kids, but there's just things that, like I said, that a dad can do, and that's where we need to, people need to, generational curses need to be broken, man.
Mhm.
And that's good that you flipped it around and you got a tight knit family.
And I see it, Anthony.
You're a great
You're
man.
a great man. I see you hug on your grandbaby, and that's so beautiful, And he's a beautiful.
See you changing diapers.
Yeah.
Man.
What the heck?
And then we have opportunity to show that kind of patience with the kids
Yeah.
around us, right, from the neighborhood
Yeah.
and so forth. I learned too, one of the things I remember having a conversation with a young man, and just he was very emotional and just talking about just his family environment and so forth. So I just listened, again, having patience, listening and so forth, but pointing back. So what I learned is to point back to his family and point out the qualities of both parents, because we all have flaws, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect, and but to be reminded that there are. And so one of the things I remember mentioning was like, oh, your dad works, man. He's a hard worker.
Yeah.
And so trying to point back to some of the good qualities,
Yeah.
even though again, like, so my dad was a hard worker. That's what as a quality,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Even though he may not have sat around and gave me advice, but I could, try to kind of point to that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm learning in the neighborhood too is that, yes, there's a great need for mentors and, father figures and so forth. But I certainly don't want to replace
No.
the fathers that are there in their home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
I want to point back if anything, I want to point back to them, help them to, kind of develop that relationship with their dad and so forth. But, anyways, this has been great conversation,
Yeah.
regarding, upbringing, about the need for fathers and need for just mentors, like you mentioned, both mothers too as well, right?
Yeah.
And all of that. So I look forward to future conversations, on different topics regarding some of the neighborhood too as well.
Yeah.
So just a shout out again, just letting individuals know again on Thursdays, every Thursday from 6 to 8, we together with our partners from City Life, we have a place for teenagers. And then also this weekend, if you're in the neighborhood, just be listening because
Yeah.
Santa's coming.
So,
Yeah, Santa's coming to the
Santa
neighborhood,
Claus is
right? All right, well, thank you guys for sharing your hearts. Thank you for those that tuned in. God bless you, and
Yeah,
I
God
pray
bless
that
you.
you would all have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony.